Welcome to episode 124 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Laws Guy. It's March 4, 1967. We're at Wembley, and today's story is about something we treat as normal now. Wembley in March, a one-match League Cup final on a Saturday afternoon, the winners lifting silver while the losers stare into a new kind of football pain. But in 1967, this is not normal. It's new. And the team that makes it unforgettable is Queen's Park Rangers, a third division club that walk into Wembley, go 2-0 down to the holders, and still win the Football League Cup 3-2. It's one of those results that doesn't just shock a crowd, it upgrades an entire competition. But how did we get here? We start with the League Cup itself. This tournament is young. It's only in its 7th season. It exists because English football is changing. Floodlights are spreading. Midweek evenings become a new commercial space. The Football League wants its own big event, something that fits modern scheduling and modern revenue. In the early years, it's still figuring out what it is. The finals aren't at Wembley. They're played over 2 legs, home and away, like the competition is still apologizing for existing. And then, in 1967, the League Cup tries something that feels obvious today, but wasn't then. One match, at Wembley. Make it feel major. Make it look like a proper final. Put it on the sport's biggest stage and let the stage do half the marketing. And then, football being football, gives Wembley the exact story it needs. Because the first League Cup final at Wembley is not a tidy coronation. It's a giant killing with a plot twist. Now look at the two clubs walking out of the tunnel. West Bromwich Albion, our establishment. They were there at the beginning, founding members of the Football League in 1888. They've been champions of England in 1919-20, right after World War I. They won the FA Cup multiple times. They know Wembley. 1954, they lift the FA Cup there. And they arrive in 1967 as the League Cup holders, their first attempt at the competition the previous season, and they win it. A new trophy, and Albion treated like it belongs to them. They also arrive as a first division team, 2 divisions above their opponents, managed by Jimmy Hagan, with a side full of hardened top-tier professionals. In their forward line is Jeff Assel, in midfield Tony Brown, and on the flank, Clive Clark, a former QPR man who scored in the previous year's League Cup final and knows what big days feel like. So West Brom are not tourists at Wembley. They're the ones everyone expects to see lifting the cup again. And then there's QPR. Their history is not founding member, it's fighting for relevance. They're elected to the Football League in 1920, the same year West Brom are crowned champions of England. And for long stretches, Rangers live in the lower half of the pyramid, in the world where clubs survive by gate receipts and belief. By the mid-1960s, they've spent years stuck in the third division, 15 seasons of Saturday routines that don't come with glamour. But 1967 is the hinge. Because under manager Alex Stock and under the club-building ambition of chairman Jim Gregory, QPR are transforming. This isn't a team built on one superstar. It's a team built on momentum, recruitment, and a kind of coherent confidence that lower division clubs usually don't have. They've got an experienced spine. Mike Keane is the captain. And they've got firepower. Les Allen up front, a former double winner at Spurs, now the sharp end of a third division revolution. And they've got personality and goals in the same body. Mark Lazarus and Rodney Marsh, 2 men who play as if restraint is optional. And they've even got a goalkeeper with serious pedigree, Ron Springett, an England international and World Cup squad man, brought back to the club at exactly the right moment, because if you're going to gamble on Wembley, you want someone in goal who doesn't freeze when the stadium breathes. And here's the crucial point. QPR don't arrive at Wembley as a fluke cup run. They arrive mid-flight. They're heading for promotion. They're about to win the third division title. They are, in real time, becoming the next version of themselves. So Wembley becomes not just a final, it becomes a reveal. Now to the match. Almost 98,000 people at Wembley. The first one-match League Cup final. The first time this cup gets the Wembley treatment. And the opening minutes follow the expected script. West Brom score in the 7th minute. Clive Clark, Chippy Clark, against his old club. It's a goal that says, welcome to the grown-ups. And then West Brom score again, in the 36th minute. Clive Clark again, 2-0. And at half-time, this feels like it's going to be one of those finals where the story is not the underdog's dream, but the underdog's lesson. because 2-0 at Wembley is not just a scoreline, it's a psychological climate. It's the moment where the favourites start believing the cup is already engraved, and the underdog starts hearing the crowd's patience disappear. But QPR come out for the second half like a team that has decided that humiliation is not an option. There's a line you can feel in these big comebacks, the moment where one team thinks we're safe, and the other thinks we're not dead. And when those two beliefs collide, football does what it does best. It punishes complacency. QPR changed shape. They changed urgency. They stopped waiting for permission. And then, on 64 minutes, they get their lifeline. Les Allen delivers a set piece. Roger Morgan meets it with a precise header. Goal. 2-1. And suddenly the entire stadium changes temperature. Because now West Brom have something to lose again. And QPR have something to chase that isn't abstract. Now it's real. And 11 minutes later, it's 2-2. Rodney Marsh, who has been terrorizing the third division all season, does the thing that makes him Marsh. Direct running, swagger, and the sense that defenders are there to be embarrassed. He scores with his right foot off the left-hand post, and Wembley becomes the place where the underdog stops being quaint and starts being dangerous. And at this point you can feel the phrase forming in the mind. If they can equalize, they can win. Then comes the 82nd minute and the moment that turns comeback into immortality. A ball goes into the West Brom box. There's a scramble. Ron Hunt, QPR's defender, tackles with West Brom's goalkeeper Dick Shepherd. Shepherd goes down. The ball comes loose. And Mark Lazarus, alive to chaos, alive to the loose ball, and alive to the 1 second that decides who gets written into history, sticks it in. 3-2 QPR. West Brom protest. Of course they protest. Because from their perspective, the keeper has been fouled and a trophy has been stolen. But from QPR's perspective, this is what cup football really is. A moment where the bigger club asks for order and the smaller club benefits from disorder. And when the whistle goes, the scoreboard doesn't just announce a winner, it announces a cultural fact. A third division club has won a major trophy at Wembley against the holders in the first one-match final. You could not script a better marketing campaign for a competition trying to become major. So what does this change? First, it changed QPR's identity. This isn't just the greatest day in the club's history. It's the day the club proves it can live on football's main stage. And it becomes even bigger because it isn't a one-off miracle followed by mediocrity. QPR complete the double that spring, League Cup winners and third division champions. Then comes the meteoric rise. They go up. And then they go up again, into the first division for the first time. They don't stay there long on that first visit. Football's top flight is a different ecosystem, but the direction is set. And if you want the long arc, QPR are back in the top division by 1973. And by 76, they're not merely surviving up there, they're finishing second in the first division, 1 point off the title. We'll do an episode on that run in a couple of months. But think about that. 1967, third-tier club lifting a cup at Wembley. 1976, first-tier club, almost champions of England. That's not normal. That's a club catching a wave and learning how to surf it. And this Wembley win is part of the wave. It makes the club bigger, louder, more recruitable. It's one reason players want to join. It's one reason the club can become a home for Mavericks. Exactly the kind of ecosystem that will later fit someone like Stan Bowles, the genius chaos agent we've already talked about on this show in episode 101, when he took money from 2 competing boots brands and wore one of each. Definitely worth a listen. A second change was West Brom's story. In a subtler way, West Brom are still West Brom. They're still a big traditional club, and they respond like big clubs often do. They keep moving. They finish mid-table that season, and within a year, they're back at Wembley and win the FA Cup. But this final also sits close to the moment where Albion's long, uninterrupted top-flight stability ends. In 1973, the year QPR climbing back into the first division, West Brom are relegated out of it. And then, in the late 1970s, they reinvent their identity again, becoming one of English football's most beloved sides, with a team that is both brilliant and culturally important. So yes, if you want to see this final as an inflection point, you can. Not as this match caused everything, but as this match sits right on the scene where one club is rising and the other is about to enter a new cycle. And a third so what, and this is the big one, it changes the League Cup, because the League Cup is trying to become a major competition, and majors need rituals. A Wembley final is a ritual. A one-match showdown is a ritual. A giant killing is a ritual. And QPR delivers a Wembley origin story that the League Cup can live off for decades. And the irony that makes it even more delicious, QPR win the League Cup and can't go into Europe, not because they weren't good enough, but simply because they weren't a first division club. In previous years, one of FA's nominations for the Intercities Fairs Cup was the winner of the League Cup. However, the Fairs Cup committee required that only teams from the highest tier of the Nations League system could enter, so QPR wasn't allowed to go. Instead, Liverpool was invited and made it to the third round, where they were eliminated by Ferencváros. So, before we go, 3 things to take away from March 4, 1967. First, a competition becomes major when its rituals become major. Wembley at the one-match final didn't just change the venue, they changed the League Cup status. Second, football's greatest shocks are usually built on timing. QPR didn't win because they got lucky for 90 minutes. They won because the club was already lifting itself, promotion form, attacking players, belief, and Wembley simply amplified what was already happening. And third, the scoreline is the headline, but the deeper legacy is the pathway. 1967 is the day QPR step onto the national stage, and the line from that day runs straight toward 1967, when they almost win the league. On this day in 1967, Hughes Park Rangers went to Wembley, fell 2-0 behind the holders, and still won 3-2, turning the first one-match League Cup final into a myth and proving that even English football's rituals had to be invented before they could be taken for granted. That's all for episode 124 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Lost Guy. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, leave a rating, and share it with a fellow football historian. If you've got ideas, corrections, or a story you want me to chase, you can always reach me at otd@17lawsguy.com. Tomorrow, we go to March 5, 1983, and to the story of Lutz Eigendorf, a footballer who defected from East Germany, became a symbol, and then died in circumstances that still feel like Cold War football reaching beyond the touchline. See you tomorrow.